The 1,400 square kilometer island of Rhodes is the largest island of the Dodecanese Islands. It lies in the Aegean Sea, not far from Asia Minor, from which it was separated at the beginning of the Tertiary period. It's closer to the coast of Turkey than Greece. Its coast is 220 kilometers long, and its highest mountain is more than 1,200 meters high. First, the island was inhabited by the Achaeans. Then it was overthrown by the Dorian invasion. The prosperity of the towns on the islands, which took part in the Trojan War with 9 galleys, is mentioned several times by Homer in his Iliad. Their favorable geographical position and prosperity stemming from this location have made the island an economic and political power. Rhodes created some colonies even in the times before Christ, not only in Asia Minor, but also on the territory of present-day France. The town by the same name, which was put on the map by becoming one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Colossus of Rhodes, was built on the northeast side of Rhodes Island, on the territory of 3 ancient poleis in 408 BC. The statue depicted Helios, the sun god. When finally the Macedonian king Demetrius withdrew after an unsuccessful siege of the town lasting 1 year, his abandoned battle machines were sold by the Rhodians and the huge bronze statue was erected from the amount of money received. The 31-meter-high artwork stood in the harbor of Mandraki, and below its 2 sprawling legs, boats were running, guarded at night by a flare in the hand of the statue. It took 12 years for Charis of Lindos, the Greek sculptor, to build the work of art and only 1 night for an earthquake to destroy it. The remains stood on its place for more than 800 years. The present-day town combines the ancient lineation of the streets and the Gothic buildings of the Middle Ages with the mosques and minarets of Oriental atmosphere. The Johannites played a dominant role in the town's history and architecture. The town walls were built by members of the Johannite military order, together with the best officers of the engineering corps of the era. The center of the old town is Hippocrates Square, adorned with a fountain. An amazing view of the square opens up from terraces of nearby taverns and restaurants. The busy streets with several little shops look like a real Turkish bazaar, which is of course no coincidence, since we are in the Turkish quarter. The Turkish, as is in the case of every conquered area, left their mark on this place in the form of Turkish spas, jamis, mosques, and minarets. Rhodes was able to preserve its glory and prosperity until the appearance of the Holy Roman Empire. Nowadays, the island is frequently called the Island of Roses. However, hardly any roses can be seen here, but there is an abundance of oleander and hibiscus. The name can be traced back to the sun god cult of the inhabitants of the island. According to the myth, Helios fell in love with the nymph Rhode, the daughter of Poseidon. The sovereign military order of St. John of Rhodes was established in the 11th century in Jerusalem. Driven out of the Holy Land, they tried to settle down in Cyprus. Then in 1306, they bought the Dodecanese from Genoese pirates. The order of the militant monks, who wore red vests decorated with a crucifix on top of their chain armor, became more and more influential. The Johannites became extremely wealthy by obtaining the fortune of their rival, the dissolved Knights Templar Order, with papal assistance. Their fleet of black galleys played a significant role in commercial shipping. Meanwhile, the knights were continuously working on fortifying their towns. Sometimes the town walls were 13 to 15 meters thick. They could resist 2 Ottoman attacks. However, they couldn't defy the 100,000-strong army of Suleiman the Magnificent, and the Sultan conquered Rhodes in 1522. Following the battle, the knights were expelled to the island of Crete, then Malta, and their order has been known as the Order of Malta ever since. The Johannites consisted of 7 groups of different nationalities that were called languages. Languages such as English, German, Italian, Spanish, French, as well as Auvergnat and Provençal were spoken. The languages had their own commanders who chose the Templar Grand Master, which was almost equal to royal status. Members of the order were classified into 3 groups: priests, soldiers, and servants. The most significant site of the old town is the Palace of the Grand Master. The main entrance of the building that would make a good fortress is guarded by 2 towers with indented entablatures. The Gothic-style gate leads to a closed inner courtyard. Under the palace, a 3-level casemate or dungeon can be found which could serve as a shelter for the inhabitants of the castle during a long-lasting siege. The consecutive generations of Grand Masters decorated and renovated the building according to the taste of the era, which was customary in case of the royal palaces too. The temple belonging to the palace was unfortunately destroyed by a gunpowder explosion. Its replica was built in the harbor of Mandraki. The Street of the Knights that starts from the Palace of the Grand Masters is the part of the town with the best atmosphere. The former coats of arms of the languages can still be seen on the domed houses. In the surprisingly intact ensemble of works of art, among others, the accommodation of the knights, the hospital, chapel, communal rooms, the loggias, which were a kind of meeting room, as well as the building of the Knights' Court can be seen. The bastions and towers of the fortress served as accommodation of the garrison. The harbor can be seen from the watchtower even today. However, we're met with a completely different view than earlier. Three characteristic windmills stand on the pier of the harbor, which ground the grain transported by boats already at the end of the 1400s. The Ios Nikolaos Tower Fortress from the 15th century stands at the end of the pier and functions as a light tower today. Two columns stand in the former place of the 2 legs of the Colossus, bearing the new emblem of the island, 2 fallow deer. By the way, the deer were brought to the island as protection against snakes. The Moorish-style building of the new marketplace, the Nia Agora, is one of the most lively spots in town and is also the first view for those arriving by ship. Its pentagonal closed courtyard is crowded with shops and cafes, both inside and outside. Tourists like relaxing in the shade of its leafy trees. In the harbor stands St. Stephen's Cathedral, which is well known for its church clock. and next to it, the ornamented building of the prefecture, a monument of the Italian occupation, can be found. The town hall, the buildings of the National and Town Theater, as well as the National Bank, the post office, the law courts, and customs houses of the port can also be found along the quayside. The decorative building of the new beach perfectly fits into this environment. The island of Rhodes also offers enticing sights beyond the capital. During heat waves, Eptapius, the Seven Springs Valley, pleasantly eases the heat. Its special microclimate can be attributed to the cool creeks which join together in a lake. Beside the lake is a restaurant. Several unusual plants, such as orchids, are at home here. According to mythology, this is also the home of the Naiads, the forest nymphs. Our way continues on along the orange groves. Lindos, the second most well-known and visited place of the island of Rhodes, can be found a little over 50 kilometers from the capital city. The smaller port of Lindos can easily be seen from the mountain, where, according to legend, Apostle Paul could find shelter from the stormy sea. White houses frame the mountain like a collar, on which there's a gray citadel. First, a temple devoted to Athena, the goddess of virtue, was erected on the 120-meter-high cliff. Then a castle was built on this place in Byzantine times, which was altered to become a real fortress by Johannite knights. The total floor space of the castle is 8.5 square kilometers. Multi-storied hotel blocks are unknown in the village, but there are several guest houses with 6 or 8 rooms each. The terraced Acropolis that rises above the sea can be reached only by a long walk. Riding a donkey, this journey is less tiring and much more exciting. By the way, a donkey is a characteristic means of transport in Greece, so it's worth getting familiar with it. Regarding the increased tourist trade, almost every house of the beautifully renovated village has opened a shop, tavern, bar, or ice cream bar. The Valley of the Butterflies is 26 kilometers from the capital city, near the village of Lalissos. The special character of this valley can be attributed to the storax tree, which is native here. The special smell of the tree's resin attracts a certain species of butterflies. The Callimorpha quadripunctaria, which is a colored moth, otherwise indigenous to most parts of Europe, can be found here in groups that are larger than anywhere else in the world. A light breeze or a loud noise is enough for dozens of butterflies to fly out of the branches. That's why moving the branches is a great experience for the tourists. The butterflies, on the other hand, don't enjoy it very much. Small babbling brooks, waterfalls, and scenic valleys interspersed with creeks also offer shelter against summer heat. The high humidity, mild balanced temperature, calm, and the fragrance of the plants make Petalondas an amazing holiday resort. It's worth walking up the forest path to Panagia Kalopetra Monastery, where we can look back to the valley. The northeast neighbor of Rhodes, Kos, is a 40-kilometer-long island with 20,000 inhabitants. It's often called the Island of Peace, Soul, and Tranquility. However, it's more widely known as the birthplace of Hippocrates. Here, everything reminds us of the father of medicine. Kos is the only Greek island which is not ruled by mountains, since its highest point is only 840 meters. The island is only 8 kilometers away from the Turkish coast. It's near the town of Bodrum, which was called Halikarnassus in ancient times. The mausoleum there was, like the Colossus of Rhodes, one of the 7 wonders of the world. The island's capital has the same name too, and to enhance the resemblance further, here too, the harbor is also called Mandraki. It seems that the history book of Kos was carbon copied from that of Rhodes. Its masters were first the Dorians, then the Achaeans. Later it was conquered by Byzantium and Venice. In the 14th century, the Johannites did some fortifying works. In 1522, it was conquered by the Ottomans. Between 1912 and 1943, together with the other islands of the Dodecanese and Rhodes, it came under Italian authority. When Mussolini intended to make the Palace of the Grand Master in Rhodes his summer residence, he had every statue, column, mosaic, and relief transported there from Kos. A side of which Rhodes cannot be too proud can be found behind the fortress of the Johannites. Here stands the extremely old sycamore tree under which Hippocrates' students sat and were taught the mysteries of medicine. It's a nice story, however only partly true, since the Methuselah tree is 500 or 600 years old, so only a late descendant of the original one. A well made by using an antique sarcophagus trickles in the trunk of a tree. Two significant Ottoman buildings sneak some exotic flavor into the cityscape. These are the two-storied building of the Loggia and the Defterdar Mosque. The ancient marketplace, the large excavation area that revealed the relics of Agora, is only a few steps away from the main square. The 8 Corinthian columns of a portico from the 4th century BC can also be seen. The relics of the altar of Aphrodite, as well as a 3-nave Paleo-Christian basilica, have been excavated. Gray granite can be found here as well as in other parts of the excavation area of the town, the derivation of which was determined by professionals as Sicily. It's remained a mystery why and how these stones were transported here. The ruins were revealed only during the reconstruction works following an earthquake in 1933. Massive arches covered the town spa where the inhabitants could swim in 4 pools filled with water from hot springs. The floors of churches and houses were covered with mosaics, some of which were removed by Italians, but the other part can be admired in the Archaeological Museum of the island. The present-day marketplace of the town can be found not far from the ancient agora. In the shade of the massive building of the temple, a pleasant restaurant with a terrace offers refreshment. On the square, there's a squatty mosque. And opposite the mosque stands the building of the yacht club with its church clock. In the Venetian-style arcaded building of the market, we can buy local specialties, spices, olive oil, honey, vegetables and fruit, but clams and sponges are also available. In the early afternoon, the streets become almost empty. Tourists paddle in the swimming pools of their hotel or lie in the shade of a beach umbrella seaside. The Mediterranean sun shoots its beams ferociously from the cloudless sky. The locals relax behind the blinds of their flat. The terraces of the restaurants are also empty, and waiters prepare for the busy hours in the evening. Only the most determined tourists take pictures and record films in the harbor. The heat wave is eased only by the pleasant southern breeze from the sea, the Meltemi. As night falls, the heat eases up a bit. The town and the harbor put on its wreath of light like a shiny piece of jewelry. The pace of life quickens, and the terraces of the restaurants start to fill up with guests. At such times, the simple but delicious meals of the Greek cuisine, as well as the local drinks, are much in demand. The romance of the evening enchants everyone and compels to return to the Greek islands again and again. Although the beautiful ships lying at anchor in the harbor were all built 6 to 7 years ago, they express the image of their ancestors from bygone centuries. Any of them can be tried out for a day trip. An important site of Kos is Asklepion, the 2,400-year-old healing place, which was established after the death of Hippocrates. Healing took place here in the spirit of the master's doctrines. Spa therapy, herbal cure, massage, remedial gymnastics, even hypnosis, meditation, and special diets were used. The most important merit of Hippocrates was that he separated sciences from the Holy Office that had earlier been closely connected. He established his famous medicine school and composed the text of the Hippocratic Oath that has been used up to this day. The ruins of Asclepion spread over 4 levels. On the first, the bath and guest rooms can be found. The second floor is that of a wide portico which was used for treating patients. The major building of the upper floors was the temple devoted to Asclepion. The place was given its name from a mythological figure, the son of Apollo. Zia is a traditional and tradition-abiding small village in the mountains from where the setting sun above the Aegean Sea offers a spectacular view. Craftsmen prepare and sell their goods in their houses, for example, hand-carved pipes. Here we can find pottery, folk weaving, carvings, and spicy oil. And also curved daggers made from the horns of mountain goats. Young people plucking the bouzouki prepare for the evening. Travel agencies bring tourists here for a group dinner and folklore evening with music and dance. Everything goes according to plan. The sun sinks into the melting gold-colored sea. The tourists delight in it, meanwhile gradually filling up the tavern so that the musical performance can begin. A beautiful sight of Andamakia is the 400-year-old windmill and the little museum that stands opposite. The dwelling house of a landlord from 1907 has been redecorated and furnished. Here we can get an idea of how middle-class islanders lived at the beginning of the 20th century. Several old and rare articles for personal use and the spirit of the place explain why busloads of curious people visit the island every day. Neither Kos nor Rhodes has a museum with such an intimate atmosphere, differing so much from the rather austere environment of other archaeological museums. Kefalos was built on a hill that faces the sea, at the end of a road crossing the island. There's a wonderful view of the scenic Kamari Bay and the Kastri Cliff with a chapel on it. This is the most beautiful and most popular beach of Kos, where we can find both sandy and rocky beaches. The protected bay is a favorite place of surfers as well. Adjacent to the beach, on the rocky peninsula that stretches into the sea, some columns, wall relics, and mosaics indicate that the Paleo-Christian basilica devoted to Agios Stephanos used to stand here. Castro was a fortress now in ruins which stands at the highest point of Kefalos. Its relics were taken away and used for building material by local people. The relics of Vestipalia, the ancient capital of the island, were excavated 1.5 to 2 kilometers south of the town, which was destroyed by an earthquake in the 5th century. This was the birthplace of Hippocrates. The windmill standing on top of the mountain has been inherited from father to son since 1410. Those who believe that there are only excavations, museums, churches, and monuments on the island of Kos are mistaken. The friendly bays hide ports and beaches, and several entertainment facilities can be found here, from discos to aqua parks. The types of accommodation range from hospitable guest houses to all-inclusive apartment areas, meeting all expectations. After seeing all the attractions of the island of Kos, let's go on a ship cruise and have a look at the 3 islands nearby, Leros, Patmos, and Lipsi. If we spend our holidays on one of the Greek islands, we shouldn't miss out on a boat, which offers a truly memorable experience. In spite of its name, which means dirty or filthy, Leros is a clean, nice, and tidy little island. It definitely benefits the island that despite its natural beauties and monuments, it's still untouched by mass tourism. Once it was an infamous nest of pirates where Julius Caesar was held captive for a ransom. After being released, the emperor had all of his kidnappers executed. Military graveyards and deserted military airports are reminiscent of the clashes of British and German troops in World War II. This is where the Italians, allied with Hitler's Germany, had the headquarters of their Air Force and Navy fleet. In the 70s, the Greek military junta kept its opponents here, closed in a kind of concentration camp. The dark past has given place to a sunshiny present. The village stretching up the hillside over the port of Aya Marina is crowned by a Byzantine castle from where a beautiful view opens up of the four fjords. Still standing today, this is the church named after the Lady of the Castle, which has a wonder-working icon according to believers. Besides the capital Platanos, other settlements of the 53-square-kilometer island are Laki, Fromolitos, Alinda, and Xerocambos. We cruise further in a northwesterly direction to the nearby island of Patmos. Patmos is exactly what a Greek island is supposed to be like. Its dazzling white houses are reflected in the dark blue water of the sea. In the port, swarming with colorful boats, fishermen patch their nets. Bells ring in the church towers. In the cloudless sky, seagulls soar. The streets are deserted at midday because of the cruelly burning sun. Skala is the capital of the island and the center of everyday life. Everything can be found here: post office, bank, exchange office, police station, port and customs office, and a number of shops. The island that was once under the auspices of the Pope has always been considered religiously centered. The main attraction of Patmos is the fortified monastery of St. John, surrounded by the white houses of Hora rising above the port. Its image from a distance is very similar to Lindos. We can turn off the road leading to the monastery and head towards the cave of the Apocalypse, where, according to legend, St. John the Divine heard the voice of the Lord. The herald of heaven sounded from a cleft in the rock, and here is the rock on which a faithful disciple noted John's words. The winding road leads up to the quiet, intimate village of Hora, where besides some shops selling trinkets and a few cafes, we can find nothing else but tranquility, sun-kissed rocks, blooming oleanders, and a gripping, picturesque view. This tranquility and the view compensate us for the hardness of the road leading upwards. The golden brown wall of the monastery is girdled by a scalloped molding. The building is a fanciful combination of terraces, stairs, inner courtyards, arcades, and balconies, which has taken on its present shape over the centuries. Our ship turns to the northeast in the direction of the Turkish Riviera. Lipsi is one of the 3 islands near Patmos. These islands are small dots, hardly noticeable even on maps. Archi and Agatonis are visited only by adventurous people with private yachts, primarily for the caves, which are suitable for bathing. Their light blue water reminds us of the famous Blue Cave of Capri. Lipsi has just started to be discovered by travel agencies. Although it doesn't have any real attractions, it has a pleasant atmosphere and it's characteristically Greek. On the island, there's a conspicuously high number of church towers, and looking around from the port, we can see exactly a dozen. We've reached the end of our journey, presenting the most significant sites of the Dodecanese island group, a trip which is always rich in experiences.